Have you ever walked out of an interview knowing you could do the job, but also just knowing something didn't quite land? Not because you weren't prepared for it, not because you lacked that experience, just that feeling that you were meant to say something that didn't just come out the way you hoped. That feeling that stayed with you after you're like, oh, I wish I'd just say this. Because many of you have described this to me in recent conversations that I've had with you in my recent session where I had people join my free interview session on how to, be confident in your interviews. And I've seen it happen over and over again. Capable, experienced people leaving interviews unsure, not because, again, they were not right for the role, but because the conversation just didn't fully reflect who they were or how they do the work. Hey friends, welcome back to the Project Manager Connect Show. I am your host, Anna Anderson. I'm the founder of the Women in Project Management Network and also the Project Training Network. I help people transition into project management, help you interview so that you can go ahead and ace your interview and get that project manager role. And if you're here today, welcome to the show. Today, I want to talk to you about that space between knowing you can do the job and also being able to communicate it clearly during your interview. One thing that has stood out in a couple of conversations that I've had with people who are interviewing is sometimes they do underestimate the job description. Sometimes some people read it once or maybe just twice and then they just set it aside. But for the project management roles, the job description is doing a lot of the talking for the organization. That's very important. That's why they have the job description out there. It does point out where things feel heavy, what's not working, and what kind of relationship they're looking or hoping to bring in. So when you slow down, when you read that job description carefully, you start to see a couple of patterns, and those patterns start to show up. Things like communication, stakeholder alignment, delivery, change. Those themes are not accidental. They are clues. They are things that are showing you the pain points the organization currently has. So those themes will help you. They connect the dots. And when your interview stories connect back to those themes, your answers start to feel more grounded and also they just start to feel intentional. Right? Another thing that I've seen come up is the power of storytelling. A lot of people actually do underestimate this and they don't think that interviews are telling your story. Telling your story is very, very important because you have those strong experiences. You'll share experiences probably with projects that were complex, timelines that probably shifted, teams that probably needed that alignment. But sometimes the story itself, sometimes it just gets lost because you're giving too much background and you're not giving enough focus on what actually changed. That's where structure helps. I use STAR. Please use it if you can. It is important for you to share your story. When you briefly explain what was happening, what needed attention, how you approached it, and what came out of it, the interviewer doesn't have to work to follow along your story. They can focus on how you think and also how you lead. We also talked about some probably small habits that can quietly work against you as a candidate. For example, you start talking in circles. You're minimizing results or answering questions too broadly. Those aren't obvious mistakes. They are an easy miss, and sometimes you can easily miss them because you're overthinking. Over time, you make it harder for the person who is interviewing you to have that just clear picture of what your role is in that situation. Interviewers want you to share your story. It doesn't have to be perfect. Not saying all the right words, just whether the person on the other side of the table can imagine working with you, seeing you handle real situations, real pressure, and sometimes even real change. So preparation is very, very important. Not the kind that involves memorizing answers, because I've seen this. When you memorize your answers, sometimes you'll forget. So do not memorize your answers. Tell your story and remember your story through your experiences. It's more about which stories reflect your leadership and being comfortable talking through them in your own words, right? In your own words. I can give you the answers, but if you go ahead and memorize and you have follow-up questions, you're probably going to mess up. When that preparation is there, the conversation tends to feel more natural and the confidence comes out without you feeling like you're forcing it and you feel comfortable in it. So before your next interview, it helps to slow things down. Spend more time with the job description. It is your cheat code, right? Pull out those themes. Choose a few experiences that match what the role is asking for. practice, practice, practice. I say this all the time, practice. Practice through them out loud so that they sound familiar and they are not rehearsed. Those small shifts like this can change how the entire interview actually is going to feel. So if this episode is bringing up thoughts about your own interviews, the ones that probably went well and maybe the ones that did not, I'm hosting a workshop this weekend where we'll spend some time walking through interview stories, talking about positioning and how to show up more clearly in these conversations. I know it's that time of the year, but if you want to start the new year feeling fresh, this is for you. It's going to be your space to dig into, writing your stories without rushing and without guessing, and also learning the formula to creating your story. So I'd love you to come there, and I'd love you to go to my show notes, sign up, enroll, and come to the session. So thanks for spending this time with me. Thanks for listening to this episode. I'm hoping that it was I gave you a little bit of insight on how to prepare for your interview. All right. I'll see you in the next episode. And until then, happy holidays. Okay.